I came home in discharge clothes, sweatpants too loose from the weight I'd lost, hair still matted at the back from 2 weeks of hospital pillows. The cab smelled like damp leather and fries, and I clutched the prescription bag like a life raft. The keys in my pocket felt foreign. My hand trembled, not from illness anymore, but from something worse. Anticipation. I had texted them that morning. Getting discharged today. Be home around 2. Can someone bring me a bag of groceries? No one replied, just like they hadn't visited. Not once. I told myself they were busy. Work, kids, stress. I told myself a lot of things in the hospital. Told myself I'd forgive them if they just made space for me when I got back. I climbed the 3 flights slowly, gripping the railing like a friend. The door had changed, not in a big way, but the welcome mat was new, brighter, girly, with cursive writing that read, "Bless this mess." And the key didn't fit. I blinked, tried again, jammed, twisted, nothing. That was when I noticed the shoes. 4 pairs, none of them mine, neatly lined by the wall. Heels, sneakers, 1 pair of pink fuzzy slides. The door opened while I was still crouched. Not by my sister, not by my mother, not by anyone I knew. A girl, younger, maybe 21. Her hair was bleached at the ends and wet, like she'd just stepped out of my shower. My shower. She looked at me like I was the one on the wrong side of the door. Can I help you? She said, chewing gum, wearing my robe. I think something cracked inside me then, but quietly, like frozen glass under slow pressure. I asked to speak to my family. She shrugged and said, they went out for lunch. Said I could crash here for the week. This used to be your place, right? She said it like it was ancient history. Used to be. I didn't scream. I didn't push past her. I didn't say a word. I turned and sat on the hallway step, feeling the ache in my legs and in the hollow place under my ribs where food hadn't settled in days. It took them 4 hours to come back. They didn't bring me lunch. They brought her a coffee. She's staying just for a little while, my sister said quickly, arms crossed like I was the problem. We didn't know when you'd be back. I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You were in the hospital, she said, like it explained everything. We figured you'd need quiet recovery, so we thought it'd be easier if they let someone else take my bed. If they threw out my food, moved my boxes, replaced my sheets. She's your cousin's daughter, Mom added. She needed a place. We didn't think you'd mind. Didn't think I'd mind. Didn't think I'd notice. I slept that night at a motel by the gas station, the kind with humming fluorescent lights and thin towels. I stared at the popcorn ceiling and tried to tell myself this wasn't betrayal. Just poor communication. But then I remembered something. I had paid the rent for the next 2 months, in advance. I was lying under cheap sheets, while someone wore my robe in the apartment I funded. And that was the moment I stopped lying to myself. I started waking up early again. Not because I had somewhere to be, but because I wanted to hear the silence before the rest of the apartment stirred. There was something healing about it. The quiet creak of the window, the sound of the radiator clanking back to life, the whisper of traffic in the street below. It reminded me that I was still here, still breathing, still in the apartment I paid for. even if they'd tried to make me feel otherwise. On the third morning, I found my sister in the kitchen, standing barefoot, scrolling on her phone with her hair up in a messy bun like it was her place. I made coffee and didn't offer her any. She didn't ask. But when she reached for the oat milk in the fridge, the one I'd labeled in bold black marker with my name, I slid the door shut before her hand could touch it. She blinked at me. "You're seriously gonna be petty now?" I didn't answer, just took my mug and walked back into my room. That became the new language between us, silence with sharp edges. She stopped pretending we were close. I stopped pretending I was welcome, but I stayed. I stayed in my apartment. I cleaned the bathroom. I changed the locks when the landlord approved it. I asked him to send all future communications to me, directly. Turns out, she hadn't paid a single bill since I was admitted to the hospital. Not water, not electricity, not internet. And yet, somehow, she still had the audacity to hold house meetings like she was in charge. One night, I heard her on the phone, in the living room. "She's being weird," she said. "She's not even talking to Mom anymore. Honestly, it's like she thinks she's better than us now just because she was in the hospital." She paused, then added with a laugh, "No, she didn't die, unfortunately." The laughter on the other end of the line made me pause mid-step in the hallway. Didn't cry, I didn't flinch. I just turned and walked back into my room and opened my laptop. That night, I began drafting the letter. To the landlord, to the utility companies, to the family group chat, not to argue, but to clarify. This apartment is in my name. The rent is paid with my money. I was not asked for consent. I was not respected. I will be reclaiming full space immediately. I didn't send it yet, not because I was scared, but because I wanted it to be perfect. Sharp without cruelty, firm without venom, a mirror they couldn't look away from. A week later, I came home from my follow-up appointment and found the girl again. Cousin's daughter. In my kitchen, cooking, laughing, using my nonstick pan with a fork, scratching it like she didn't know, or didn't care, that some things aren't supposed to be handled like that. They hadn't asked. They hadn't even told me she'd be back. I walked past her. I went to my room. I shut the door, and I finally hit send. That was the night everything began to shift, not with slamming doors, not with shouting, but with the silence that follows the truth. A silence I had earned. The next morning, my sister didn't speak to me. Not when I walked past her brushing crumbs off the counter, not when I returned her hair straightener to her side of the sink, even though it had been sitting in my drawer for 3 days. She just kept moving things. Mine, mostly, as if trying to erase me without touching me directly. But something was different. She'd seen the message. They all had. Read at 10:03 p.m. Silence since. No, let's talk. No apology. No denial. Just that weighty absence that happens when people realize they've been seen clearly and can't unsee the reflection. By noon, my mom replied to the group chat. This could have been a conversation, not a call-out. We've always supported each other, but now you're acting like everything is about money and ownership. Where is your compassion? Compassion. That word hung in the air like a sour perfume. Compassion. Like the kind I waited for when they never visited me in the hospital. Like the kind I needed when I came home to find my bed occupied, my fridge raided, my life repurposed. I didn't reply. Instead, I cleaned the apartment, top to bottom. Not out of pettiness, but because it was mine, and I was reclaiming it 1 inch at a time. The kitchen sponge, replaced. The toothbrush holder, emptied. The robe she wore, folded and bagged. The second bag was for the girl. Her fuzzy slippers, her dry shampoo, her half-used mascara melting in the bathroom light. I set both bags by the door. When they came home, both of them together, I was sitting at the table, eating a salad in the quiet. My sister rolled her eyes. The cousin laughed nervously. "You're seriously kicking me out?" she asked, voice rising slightly. "No warning? Just bags by the door?" I met her eyes. No lease, no key, no permission. My sister opened her mouth to speak, but for once, I didn't wait to hear it. I stood, walked past them, and gently opened the door. No yelling, no fight, just the door, wide open, waiting. They left. She cursed. My sister didn't say a word, and when the door clicked shut, the quiet wrapped around me like a second skin. That night, I turned off my phone. The group chat was unraveling, guilt disguised as outrage, concern tangled with ego. I let them talk into the dark. I sat in the living room, now only mine, with the lights off, just the amber street glow spilling through the blinds. I ran my fingers across the armrest of the couch, the one I slept on when my fever was too high to make it to the bed. This place had been mine before, but it had never felt like mine until now. Not because I won a fight, but because I stopped waiting for anyone to treat me like I belonged. I gave that to myself. The first full day alone felt strange. Not good, not bad, just empty in a way that hummed through the walls. I thought I'd feel relief, maybe even triumph, but there was no parade in solitude, just stillness, and an eerie kind of freedom that made me feel like I should whisper inside my own home. I stood in the hallway for a long time, just looking around. Every surface, every chair, every soft light now answered to me. But they were also witnesses to what I'd let happen. How long had I allowed this quiet erasure of myself? How many versions of me had been overwritten before I finally took up space? I moved slowly that afternoon, unpacked my hospital bag, folded the sweaters no one visited me in, rehung the coat I wore when I first felt the lump that changed everything, deleted the group chat, not out of pettiness. I just couldn't carry that noise anymore, that chorus of people who only knew how to be loud when defending themselves. They could text me privately if they ever wanted to be real. None did. By evening, I opened the window and let the city drift in. Below, cars honked and children shouted, and delivery bikes weaved through puddles. I used to find it overwhelming. Now it felt like music. A reminder that life continued, without approval, without applause. I boiled pasta, ate it with olive oil and salt, and used the good bowl. The ceramic one they told me not to put in the dishwasher. I lit the candle my sister once mocked. The lavender one I bought for emotional healing. She'd laughed. Now it flickered softly beside me. I sat on the floor, back against the couch, and opened the envelope I'd kept in my drawer for months. The hospital bill. I hadn't even looked at it after discharge. Fear made it feel radioactive. But now, I read every line, every date, every dose, every coded line that proved I existed in pain, and came back, and at the bottom, scrawled in ink from the caseworker I met once, covered in full. Recovery assistance applied. You were not alone. I don't know why that broke me, but it did. Not the debt being erased, but that someone somewhere had seen me, had helped without needing me to smile or say thank you or justify my exhaustion. Someone believed I was worth saving, and they didn't even need to share a last name. That night, I cried. Not hard, not loudly, just soft tears that slid down without asking permission. It wasn't grief, it wasn't anger. It was release. The kind that happens when you realize you don't need to be loved by those who hurt you. The next morning, my phone rang. Not a text, not a comment, an actual call. The kind no one made anymore unless something had gone wrong or guilt had started to ferment into something heavier. It was Mom. The name flashed across the screen, blue light reflecting on my coffee cup. I let it ring until it stopped. She didn't leave a voicemail. I stared at my reflection in the kitchen window. I looked tired, but not hollow like before. Just unfinished. Like a painting someone had walked away from mid-stroke. I think I wanted her to say something real. Not just, let's talk. But she wouldn't. Not first. She never had. She waited for me to be the bridge. To reach across the fire and pretend I didn't notice the burns. I opened my laptop instead. Logged into the utility accounts. All of them. Water, electric, gas, internet. Every service tied to my name. I reviewed the balances, some overdue, some paid by me during the months I was too sick to realize they were using my identity as a safety net. I changed the passwords, updated the contact info, removed my sister's name from every authorized user field. And then I did something quiet. Something small, but final. I canceled the automatic transfer to my mother's bank account, the one I'd been sending, $200 to every month for the last 3 years. Just until we get through the rough patch, she had said. There was no fight, no announcement, just a quiet click. Done. Around noon, the doorbell rang. Twice. Then silence. I didn't move, didn't open it, didn't ask who it was. I already knew. Later, I found a note slipped under the door in a trembling, familiar handwriting. We didn't know you felt this way. We thought you were okay. I'm sorry if we hurt you. But this distance isn't helping anyone. Please let's fix it. Love, Mom. If we hurt you. Thought you were okay. Let's fix it. No ownership. No apology for letting a stranger sleep in my bed. No acknowledgement that they vanished when I was at my weakest. Just implication. That maybe I was being dramatic. That reconciliation required me to mute the part of me that noticed I was forgotten. I folded the note once. Tucked it in a drawer. Didn't respond. I didn't need more half-formed apologies that only healed the speaker. I wanted silence. I wanted peace. And I was starting to find it. That evening, I washed my sheets in lavender detergent. The good kind, the one I used to hide because my sister said it made her sneeze. I cleaned out the fridge, finally throwing away the last of the half-used almond milk she liked. I donated the bag of clothes they left behind. I rearranged the living room furniture. Just enough that nothing looked like it used to. Nothing felt borrowed anymore. Nothing felt like theirs. I went to bed with the window open, city air curling at my ankles. For the first time in months, I didn't wake. Up in a panic at 3 a.m. No noise, no ghosts, just breath, and the feeling of a lock clicking quietly into place, not on the door, but in me. A week passed, maybe more. I stopped counting the days because for the first time in years, my time felt like mine again. Not something portioned out in group chats, or given away to people who never remembered how much it cost me. I walked to the corner bookstore on Tuesday, the one I used to love before everything became too loud, too heavy, too full of other people's needs. The owner still remembered me. "You okay?" she asked softly, like she could see it on me. The ache of being almost well. Not sick anymore, but not whole either. I nodded. "I'm getting there." She smiled like that was enough. I bought a used copy of The Bell Jar. It felt right. Something about reclaiming stories written by women who knew what it meant to disappear in plain sight. I read it slowly, curled under the blue throw blanket they never liked. The one my ex said made the living room look too sad. Maybe it was sad, but it was honest. One afternoon, I opened the closet and found the old photo album. Not digital, not curated. Just raw prints, birthdays, graduations, beach trips. In most of them, I was in the background, holding the bags, taking the photo, smiling but half cropped out. Always peripheral, always useful, but never centered. I flipped to the last page, a photo I barely remembered taking. It was from the apartment, just before I got sick. I was sitting on the windowsill, holding a mug, looking out. Not smiling, just still. It was the first picture where I looked like me. That night, I framed it. Not to be vain, not to be spiteful, just as a reminder that I existed, even when they didn't see me. The next morning, my sister emailed me. Not a text, not a note. A long message, full of polite regret and vague accountability. "I didn't realize you were so hurt. I thought you wanted space. I didn't mean to take over. I just thought we were helping." Helping. She kept using that word, as if moving someone into my apartment and tossing my life into plastic bags was kindness, just poorly executed. She ended with, "Let's talk. We can reset. I want things to go back to how they were." I stared at that line for a long time. Back to how they were. Where I didn't ask for much. Where I said yes to things that hurt. Where I was easy to walk past, or over, because I didn't raise my voice. I didn't reply. Instead, I made tea, opened the window, watched the late spring light stretch across the floorboards. Something inside me had settled, not healed, but rooted. I was no longer waiting to be chosen. Not by them. Not by anyone. Spring turned into summer. The apartment stayed, quiet. Every so often, I'd see their names flash on my phone. Not often enough to mean something. Not rare enough to forget. There were no more apologies. Just check-ins wrapped in performance. "Hope you're okay. Let us know if you need anything." I never replied. Not out of cruelty, but because for once I finally didn't need them. I started cooking again, just for myself. Recipes. I never made when they were around because they'd call them too bland or too weird. Soft rice porridge with sesame oil, roasted carrots with cinnamon and honey, things that tasted like comfort. The apartment began to smell like me, and the more it did, the more I realized how long it had smelled like them, like compromise, like noise, like someone else's preferences creeping into every corner. One morning, I walked past the hallway mirror and didn't recognize the way I was standing, spine straighter, eyes clearer, not angry, just unburdened. I didn't realize how much of myself I had compressed to fit into their shape, how much I dimmed just to stay small enough to be tolerated. But I had space now, and I was learning how to stand fully inside it. That weekend, I took down the family photo wall, not in bitterness, but as a kind of ritual. Frame by frame, I laid them down. Laughter frozen in time. Faces that had never really looked at me. Mom's tilted head. My sister's wedding. Shot, the one I took, not invited to be in. I replaced them with other things. A print I bought from the bookstore. A postcard I wrote to myself and never mailed. A photo of my own hands holding a pen. The cousin never came back. Neither did the calls. Eventually, even the guilt messages stopped. They moved on, or learned to pretend they had. But I didn't need a reunion. I didn't want one. I didn't need them to see me anymore. Because I had seen myself. Finally, not the version they used. Not the shadow they borrowed, but the whole person who survived without their love. On the first truly hot day of summer, I left the window open wide, let the air flood the rooms, let the light touch everything they tried to take from me. I watered the plants, turned on my music, sat at the table I once set for others, and I said nothing. Not out of anger, but because peace doesn't need a performance. Some people only miss you when you stop being useful, and some kinds of silence are louder than any goodbye.